Rachel Blevins, thank you for that update.
Thank you.
And for analysis on this ongoing situation, we will go to Danny Shaw. He's a professor of Latin American and Caribbean Studies at the City University of New York. Now, Professor, thanks for being with us. First, can you clear up any confusion for us as to why the U.S. is having such a problem with two countries, Iran and Venezuela, obviously, who are both sanctioned by the U.S., now doing business with one another? Is there any precedent for how to deal with a situation like this?
There's a long precedent of U.S. blockades against any country that doesn't do its bidding, but not in the middle of a global pandemic. And of course, Venezuela, Iran, any sanctioned, besieged country, any starving country has every right to trade on mutually beneficial terms. So these these 5 Iranian tankers, they don't just fly the flag of Iran, they really fly the flag of humanity. The entire global south, the entire third world who strives for a better way forward.
Now, Professor, what do you make of Venezuela's response thus far? I mean, having a military escort to move these vessels to shore, doesn't that visually kind of amp up the tension?
No, that's called common sense. That's what any country would do. The Venezuelans have been under the strictest sanctions imaginable. Like Cuba, like Zimbabwe, like the DPRK, like any country that Washington and Trump and Obama and both wings of the ruling class don't consider their neo-colony. These sanctions have been incredibly cruel. And at a time when in the United States we have more than 1.5 million cases of COVID-19, more than 22,000 deaths here in New York City, how can the priority of Trump and the government be to overthrow a democratically elected government in Venezuela?
And the UN hasn't really been too vocal on this entire Venezuela issue. They've not fully backed Guaido and his camp, but also they haven't really full-throatedly backed Maduro either. And they're definitely not telling the U.S. to stand down on any action against Venezuela, including these botched, off-the-books attempts at a coup. So what's the UN's role here? What's their position?
The UN's response has been predictable, disappointing, tepid, liberal response. They've never out and out denounced these mercenaries who invaded Venezuela some 2 weeks ago. They've never denounced the 15 million bounty that the U.S. illegally and criminally put on the head of Nicolas Maduro, Diosdado Cabello, and the Bolivarian leadership. They've done very little to fight against these sanctions. These sanctions are incredibly cruel, intentionally denying the Venezuelan people gasoline, threatening to cut off WhatsApp, Facebook, Google, things that we in the imperialist countries would take for granted. And it's all designed to demoralize and dishearten the Venezuelan people, yet they continue to fight back by any means necessary against imperialism.
And Professor, you just a moment ago mentioned COVID-19. Obviously, today we are learning now that Latin America now has the fastest growing rate of COVID cases. Do you expect the U.S. to have any sympathy towards Venezuela as they battle this worldwide pandemic?
Quite the opposite. They've, at the very height of this global unprecedented pandemic, all they've done is tightened restrictions. Their plan has always been, these sanctions did not begin under Trump. They've existed for a long time under Democratic presidencies as well. And what they seek to do is completely drain Venezuela of its economic potential, create hardship, create mass migration, create hunger, stoke the flames of any sectarianism, and then CNN and Fox News, the whole gamut of U.S. mainstream channels and newspapers turns around, points the finger, Maduro, Maduro, Maduro. That's the only name they'll ever mention. They're probably not capable of mentioning any of the Bolivarian leadership, and they really don't have an understanding of how widespread Hugo Chavez, his influence in this Bolivarian revolution has been for 2 decades now.
And Professor, I have a little bit of time left. You just mentioned that Venezuela has actually been in the crosshairs of the U.S. before Donald Trump. Can you give us a brief breakdown on as to why?
Oh, I think we all know why, because it's got enormous natural resources, the mines, the oil, the same reason that Latin America has been in the crosshairs of Spanish colonialism, Portuguese colonialism, and then U.S. neocolonialism with its junior partners now for 5 centuries. So not much has changed. We saw what the U.S. did to the Sandinista revolution in 1979. We saw the U.S. invasion of Grenada in 1983, the invasion of Panama in 1989. So the United States continues to have this 1824 Monroeist attitude that Latin America is their backyard. But the people of Latin America are sick of this. They're going to defend Telesur. They're going to defend ALBA and the gains of the Bolivarian project.
All right. Professor Danny Shaw, we got to leave it right there. But thank you so much for your very hot take on this.
Thank you.